Disclaimer.
I prayed with him every night and still went to hell.
My name is Bethany Claire Morrison. I am 27 years old. I died for 11 minutes on September 14, 2023 in Kelowna.
For years, I told myself I was living right. Before I begin, if God brought you here, subscribe and stay with me. I went to church every Sunday at Westside Community Fellowship. I volunteered in the children's ministry. I led worship some mornings, my voice lifting prayers I believed with my whole heart. My parents raised me in the faith, and I wore that identity like armor. I was a good Christian girl. I knew the Bible. I knew the rules. But knowing and obeying, those are two very different things. I met Evan at a young adults ministry event on a Friday night in March, 2 years before I died. He walked in late, apologizing with that charming smile, his hair still damp from the gym. He sat beside me during the discussion about purpose and calling, and when he spoke, he quoted scripture. He talked about wanting to grow closer to God. He seemed like everything I had prayed for. After the meeting, we talked in the parking lot for an hour. He asked for my number. I gave it to him without hesitation. The first few months felt like a dream. We prayed together before meals. We attended services together. He would text me verses in the morning, little reminders that he was thinking about me and about God. My friends smiled when they saw us. My mother said she was happy I had found someone who shared my faith. Everyone thought we were the perfect Christian couple. Even I believed it. But somewhere between month 6 and month 12, things shifted. It started small. A kiss that lasted too long. Hands that wandered further than they should. Nights at his apartment that stretched past midnight. We told ourselves it was fine because we loved each other. We told ourselves we were planning to get married someday, so what did it matter if we moved a little faster than we should? We justified every boundary we crossed with whispered promises and late-night prayers asking for forgiveness, only to repeat the same mistakes the next weekend. I felt it. The slow, steady drift away from God. My prayer life became shallow, just words I spoke out of habit. Worship felt empty. I would stand in church on Sunday mornings, singing about surrender, and feel absolutely nothing. The conviction came in waves, usually late at night when I was alone. A quiet voice whispering that I was compromising, that I was choosing Evan over the one who loved me first. But I silenced it. I buried it. I told myself I was overthinking, that I was being too hard on myself. I refused to face the truth. I was drifting, and I knew it. But love, or what I called love, felt more real than the distant voice of God I had been ignoring for months. I thought I could manage both. I thought I could keep God and keep Evan and somehow make it all work. I was wrong. The guilt lived in my chest like a stone. Some mornings I woke up and could barely breathe under the weight of it. I would open my Bible and stare at the pages, unable to focus, unable to feel anything but shame. Evan noticed. He asked me once if I was okay, if something was bothering me. I lied. I smiled and said I was just tired. He believed me because it was easier than the truth. By September, our relationship had become a cycle. We would get close, cross lines we promised we would not cross, feel guilty, pray together, promise to do better, and then repeat it all over again. I started avoiding certain friends from church, the ones who asked too many questions, the ones whose lives reflected a standard I was no longer meeting. I made excuses for why I could not attend Bible study. I stopped posting about my faith online because I felt like a hypocrite. Evan and I argued more. Not about God, ironically. We argued about the future, about whether he was serious, about whether we were actually going to get married or if I was wasting my time. He would get defensive. I would get emotional. We would go in circles, never resolving anything, just exhausting each other. I felt trapped between loving him and knowing deep down that something about us was broken. I remember the last argument we had. September 14, 2023. A Thursday night. I drove to his apartment after work, hoping we could finally talk about where we were heading. Instead, we fought. He said I was putting too much pressure on him. I said I deserved clarity after 2 years. He said he needed time. I said I had given him enough time. It ended with me grabbing my keys and leaving, my hands shaking, my throat tight with unshed tears. I should not have been driving. I was too emotional, too distracted. But I did not want to stay, and I did not want to call anyone. I just wanted to go home, crawl into bed, and forget the entire night. I got into my car and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, trying to steady my breathing. My phone lit up on the passenger seat. A text from Evan. "I'm sorry. Can we talk tomorrow?" I stared at it. I did not reply. I just started the engine and pulled out onto the street. The roads were quiet. It was almost 11 at night, and most of Kelowna had already gone to sleep. I took Highway 97, the route I had driven 100 times. Streetlights flickered past. My mind replayed the argument on a loop. His words. My words. The look on his face when I walked out. I felt exhausted. Not just physically. Emotionally. Spiritually. I felt like I had been running on empty for months, and tonight had drained whatever was left. I did not see the ice. One moment I was driving, lost in my thoughts, and the next my tires lost grip. The car lurched sideways. I grabbed the wheel, my heart slamming into my ribs, but it did not matter. The car spun. Fast. Too fast. I saw headlights. I saw the guardrail rushing toward me. I heard myself scream. The impact was violent. Metal crunched. Glass shattered. My body jerked against the seatbelt as the car hit the rail and flipped. Once. Twice. The world turned upside down. I felt weightless, suspended in chaos. My head snapped to the side. Pain exploded across my skull. And then, nothing. Silence. I do not know how long I was unconscious. Seconds. Maybe minutes. When awareness returned, it was not the way I expected. I was not in pain. I was not cold. I was floating. I opened my eyes, and I was above the wreckage. My car was upside down in a shallow ditch just off the highway, the front end crumpled, the windows blown out. Smoke rose from the hood in thin, lazy spirals. I saw my body. It was still strapped into the driver's seat, my head tilted at an unnatural angle, blood running down my temple. My eyes were closed. I looked small, fragile, lifeless. I tried to move toward myself, but I could not. I had no weight, no substance. I was there, but I was not. I could see everything, hear everything, but I could not touch anything. It felt surreal, like watching a movie where I was both the audience and the actor. Then I heard the sirens. Distant at first, then louder. Flashing red and blue lights cut through the darkness. A fire truck. An ambulance. Paramedics rushed toward the car, their boots crunching on broken glass. One of them, a woman with short dark hair, climbed into the ditch and peered through the shattered driver's side window. "We've got a female, unresponsive, major head trauma," she shouted. Another paramedic, a man with a thick beard, joined her. They worked quickly, carefully pulling me from the wreckage, laying my body on a stretcher. I watched them check for a pulse. I watched the woman place 2 fingers on my neck, then glance at her partner and shake her head. "No pulse," she said. Her voice was calm, professional, but I heard the urgency beneath it. They started CPR. The man pressed down on my chest in steady, rhythmic compressions. The woman prepared a defibrillator. I wanted to tell them I was right there, that I was watching, that I was okay. But no sound came. I had no voice. I was a witness to my own death. "Come on," the man muttered between compressions. "Stay with us." I felt something then. Not physical. Not emotional. Something deeper. A pull. It started faint, like a whisper at the edge of my awareness, but it grew stronger. I tried to resist it, tried to stay near my body, near the paramedics, near the flashing lights and the sound of their voices. But the pull did not stop. It wrapped around me, invisible and relentless, dragging me away from the scene. The lights dimmed. The sirens faded. The cold night air disappeared, replaced by something else. Something heavy. The darkness around me thickened, no longer the darkness of night, but something alive, something that pressed against me from all sides. Heat began to rise. Not from the wreckage. Not from the flames. From below. From beneath me. It came in slow, steady waves, building with every second. I felt it on my skin, even though I no longer had skin. I felt it in my chest, even though I no longer had a body. And then I heard it. A scream. Distant. Faint. But unmistakable. Then another. And another. Dozens of voices, all crying out, all echoing through the thick, suffocating dark. I wanted to cover my ears, but I had no hands. I wanted to close my eyes, but I had no eyelids. I could only exist in that moment, suspended between two worlds, feeling the pull drag me deeper. I was not falling. Falling implies a loss of control, a surrender to gravity. This was different. I was being pulled. Deliberately. Intentionally. Something wanted me there. The darkness moved, shifting like living smoke, curling around me, guiding me downward. My mind screamed for help. My soul cried out for God. But no answer came. Only heat. Only darkness. Only the growing, unbearable weight of isolation. And then, from somewhere deep within that void, I heard a whisper. Not a voice. Not a sound. Just knowing. A truth that settled into my spirit like ice. This is where truth begins. The pull stopped. I was no longer moving. I was somewhere. Somewhere I did not want to be. The darkness was complete, so thick I could almost taste it. It filled my lungs, even though I was not breathing. It pressed against my eyes, even though I could still see. And what I saw made every part of me want to scream. The ground beneath me was not ground. It looked like stone, but it was cracked, broken, radiating heat that pulsed in waves. The cracks glowed faintly, a dull orange like dying embers. I could feel the heat rising through me, even though I had no physical body. It was not the heat of a fire. It was the heat of something older, something deeper, something that had been burning for eternity. Smoke curled upward in slow, lazy spirals, but there was no flame. No source. Just smoke that moved like it had a purpose, like it was alive. The air, if I could call it that, was thick and suffocating. Every breath I did not take felt like drowning. My chest tightened. My throat closed. Panic set in, fast and violent. I tried to move, but my legs would not respond. I tried to speak, but no sound came. I was frozen, suspended in a place that felt like the absence of everything good. The absence of light. The absence of hope. The absence of God. And then I heard them. The voices. Not screaming. Not wailing. Groaning. Deep, guttural groans of regret and sorrow that echoed through the darkness like a never-ending chorus. I turned my head, or whatever passed for my head in that place, and I saw them. Shadows. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. They moved slowly, aimlessly, like people wandering through a fog they could never escape. Some were on their knees. Some were standing, staring at nothing. Some were reaching out, grasping at air, at each other, but never connecting. Every soul was alone. Completely, utterly alone. The isolation was not just physical. It was spiritual. It was the kind of loneliness that eats you from the inside, the kind that makes you forget you were ever loved at all. I felt it. That loneliness. It wrapped around me like chains I could not see. It whispered lies I wanted to believe. No one is coming for you. No one remembers you. You are forgotten. You are lost. The weight of it crushed me. I wanted to cry, but I had no tears. I wanted to collapse, but I had no body to fall. I do not know how long I stood there. Time did not exist in that place. Seconds felt like hours. Hours felt like years. There was no clock. No sunrise. No sunset. Just the eternal, unbearable present. And then I felt it. A presence. Not like the shadows. Not like the smoke or the heat or the darkness. This was different. This was authority. This was weight. This was truth. I turned slowly, afraid of what I would see. There was no figure. No face. No body. Just light. But not the kind of light that comforts. This was the kind of light that exposes. It cut through the darkness like a blade, and I felt every hidden thing inside me laid bare. Every secret. Every compromise. Every lie I told myself. Everything I buried. Everything I ignored. Everything I justified. It was all visible. All seen. All known. I wanted to hide, but there was nowhere to go. I wanted to run, but I could not move. I could only stand there exposed, trembling in the presence of something I could not name but knew with every fiber of my being was holy. And then the voice came. It did not speak to my ears. It spoke directly to my soul, bypassing every defense I had ever built. It was not loud. It was not angry. It was calm. Steady. And somehow, that made it more terrifying. This is where truth begins. The words settled into me like stones dropped into water, sending ripples through everything I thought I knew. I wanted to respond, to explain, to defend myself, but I could not. The presence continued. Do you see them? I looked again at the shadows, at the souls wandering in endless regret. I nodded, though I do not know if I actually moved or if the presence simply knew. These are the ones who believed love was enough. They built relationships on feelings, on compromise, on physical desire. They prayed. They attended services. They called it blessed. But I was never in it. The words hit me like a hammer. I felt my heart, or whatever remained of it, crack open. I knew. I knew exactly what the presence was saying. I knew because I was one of them. The light shifted, and suddenly I was not just watching the shadows anymore. I was seeing into them. I saw couples. Thousands of them. They stood in separate spaces, divided by invisible walls, reaching for each other but never touching. Some were crying. Some were silent. Some were praying, their lips moving in desperate pleas that went unanswered. I saw a woman who looked like she had been beautiful once. She was reaching toward a man who stood with his back turned. I gave you everything, she whispered. I gave you my body, my time, my heart. I thought you loved me. But he did not turn. He could not hear her. He was trapped in his own prison, his own regret. I saw a man on his knees, weeping. I thought we were fine, he said to no one. We prayed together. We went to church. How did we end up here? But there was no answer. Just silence. I saw young women, girls barely out of their teens, standing in the dark with their arms wrapped around themselves. He said he loved me, one of them whispered. He said God brought us together. He said it was okay because we were going to get married. But there was no wedding. No future. Just the consequences of choices they could not undo. And then I saw myself. Not a shadow. Not a distant figure. Me, Bethany Claire Morrison. Standing in a cell of my own making. And beside me, separated by a chasm I could not cross, was Evan. He was looking at me, but his eyes were empty. Hollow. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. I reached for him, but my hand passed through air. We were together, but we were not. We were bound by our choices, but separated by the truth we refused to face. This is what happens, the voice said, when you sanctify with prayer what I never ordained with purpose. I felt the weight of those words crush me. We prayed together. We prayed before meals, before trips, before arguments. We prayed for our relationship, for our future, for God to bless what we were building. But we never stopped to ask if God wanted us to build it in the first place. We assumed. We justified. We convinced ourselves that because we were both Christians, because we said the right words and attended the right services, that our relationship must be blessed. But blessing is not a label you place on something you want. Blessing is something God gives to what He ordains. And we had taken what we wanted, dressed it in religious language, and called it holy. You crossed boundaries I set for your protection, the voice continued. You gave your body to someone outside of covenant and called it love. You silenced my voice when I warned you to wait, to let go, to trust me. You chose comfort over obedience. You chose him over me. Every word was true. Every word cut deeper than the last. I wanted to defend myself, to explain that I loved Evan, that I thought we were going to get married, that I did not mean for things to go so far. But the excuses died before they reached my lips. Because deep down I knew. I always knew. I knew the conviction I felt late at night was God. I knew the guilt that sat heavy in my chest after we crossed another line was the Holy Spirit warning me to stop. I knew the growing distance I felt from God was not because He left me. It was because I walked away. Slowly. Gradually. One compromise at a time. The presence showed me more. I saw moments from my own life played out before me like scenes from a movie I did not want to watch. I saw the night Evan and I first kissed in his apartment, the kiss that lasted too long, the moment I knew we were crossing into dangerous territory, but did not stop. I saw the excuses I made in my mind. We are in love. We are going to get married. It is not that bad. Other people do worse. I saw the Sundays I stood in church, singing worship songs with my hands raised, while my heart was miles away, distracted by guilt and shame I refused to confess. I saw the Bible I stopped reading because every verse felt like an accusation. I saw the friends I avoided because their lives reminded me of the standard I was no longer meeting. I saw the nights I cried in my car after leaving Evan's place, knowing I had compromised again, promising God I would do better, only to repeat the same cycle the following week. I saw the prayers I prayed asking for forgiveness while planning to sin again. I saw the version of myself I had become, a girl who knew the truth but chose the lie because the lie felt easier. And then the presence spoke again, and this time the words shattered me completely. You cannot sanctify with prayer what I did not ordain with purpose. Physical intimacy outside of covenant does not become holy because you call it love. You were mine. You were set apart. But you gave yourself to someone who was not your husband, and you called it a relationship I would bless. I broke. Not physically. I had no body to break. But something inside me, something deep and hidden, cracked wide open. I saw the truth. I saw what I had done. Not just to myself. Not just to God. But to Evan. I had convinced myself I was helping him grow spiritually, that my love would draw him closer to God. But instead, I enabled his compromise. I participated in his sin. I made it easier for both of us to drift. We were not helping each other toward heaven. We were pulling each other toward this place. Warn them, the voice said, and for the first time, I heard something that might have been sorrow. Warn my daughters. Warn my sons. Many are walking this path, believing they are walking toward me. They pray together. They attend services. They quote scripture. But their hearts are divided. Their bodies are compromised. And they are headed here, convinced they are headed to me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to fall on my face and beg for another chance. I wanted to go back and undo every choice, every moment, every compromise. But I could not move. I could only stand there, watching the truth unfold, feeling the weight of eternity press down on me. The presence was not finished. The light that had been steady, exposing, now intensified. It did not burn, but it revealed. And what it revealed next broke me in ways I did not know were possible. Look closer, the voice said. The scene before me shifted. The couples I had seen, trapped in their separate prisons of regret, were no longer distant shadows. They were real, fully formed, fully human. And I could hear their thoughts. Not spoken aloud, just known. Like their souls were open books, and I was forced to read every page. I heard a young woman, maybe 23, her voice shaking with disbelief. We were going to get married. We talked about it all the time. He said I was the one. How can this be wrong when it felt so right? I heard a man, older, his voice thick with bitterness. I gave her everything. I provided for her. I protected her. I loved her. We prayed together every night. If this is not blessed, then what is? I heard a girl, barely 20, her voice small and broken. He said God told him I was his wife. He said it was okay because we were already married in God's eyes. I believed him. I trusted him. Why would God let this happen if it was not true? Their pain was unbearable. Their confusion was suffocating. And the worst part, I understood. I understood every justification, every excuse, every lie they told themselves. Because I had told myself the same lies. The voice spoke again, cutting through their thoughts like thunder. They believed the presence of Christian language made the relationship holy. They believed praying together sanctified what I never blessed. They believed physical intimacy could be redeemed by future intent. But covenant is not a concept. It is a vow. And vows are spoken before me, not assumed in private. I felt the weight of those words settle into my chest. Evan and I never made vows. We talked about marriage. We planned for it. We assumed it would happen someday. But we lived as though we were already married without ever making the commitment before God. We took what belonged to the covenant and consumed it outside of it. The presence continued, relentless and true. Many of my children believe that because they are believers, their relationships are automatically under my blessing. But I do not bless what I do not ordain. I do not sanctify what operates in compromise. A relationship built on physical desire, emotional dependency, and spiritual complacency is not a relationship I recognize, no matter how many prayers are spoken over it. I saw more. The light revealed another layer, deeper and more painful. I saw the moments Evan and I justified our physical intimacy. The conversations we had in his apartment, the ones where we convinced ourselves it was fine because we loved each other, because we were committed, because we were planning a future. I saw the Bible verses we ignored, the sermons we sat through but did not apply, the conviction we silenced with kisses and empty promises to do better next time. And then I saw something I had never allowed myself to see before. I saw God. Not in the way I imagined him in church, distant and holy, sitting on a throne far away. I saw him close, present, watching, grieving. I saw him the night Evan and I first crossed the line. I saw him standing in that apartment, his presence filling the room, his voice calling my name. Bethany. Stop. Come back to me. But I did not hear him. I was too focused on Evan, too caught up in the moment, too convinced that what I felt was love. I saw him the mornings I woke up filled with guilt, the mornings I opened my Bible hoping to feel close to him again. He was there, waiting, ready to forgive, ready to restore. But I never fully repented. I never fully let go. I just asked for forgiveness and went back to the same relationship, the same patterns, the same compromise. I saw him the Sundays I stood in worship, my hands raised, my voice singing, but my heart far from him. He was there, singing over me, calling me back, whispering, I love you. Come back. Let him go. Trust me. But I chose Evan. Every single time I chose Evan. The grief I felt in that moment was not my own. It was his. I felt the weight of God's sorrow, the pain of a father watching his daughter walk away, knowing the consequences, knowing the danger, and being powerless to stop her because she had chosen her own way. I called you, the voice said, and now I heard the sorrow clearly. I called you to be set apart, to be holy, to trust me with your heart, your body, your future. But you gave it to someone else. You gave yourself to a man who was not your husband and convinced yourself it was love. You silenced my voice and called it freedom. You compromised your purity and called it grace. Tears I did not have felt anyway. Sobs I could not voice shook me from the inside. I had never understood until that moment what I had truly done. I had not just sinned. I had rejected God. Not with words. Not with open rebellion. But with subtle, Quiet choices that pulled me further and further from his heart. The presence shifted again, and I saw the consequences ripple outward. I saw the women in my life who looked up to me. Friends from church. Younger girls in the youth group I used to volunteer with. I saw them watching Evan and me, seeing our relationship, hearing us talk about God, and believing that what we had was the standard. I saw them enter their own relationships, justifying their own compromises, because they had seen me do it and assumed it was okay. I had not just destroyed myself. I had led others astray. You were a light, the voice said, but you chose to dim it. And in your dimness, others stumbled. The words crushed me. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to cease to exist. The weight of my choices, the ripple effect of my compromise, the lives I had influenced without even knowing it, it was too much. Too heavy. Too real. And then the presence spoke the words I will never forget. This is why I warn. This is why I call. This is why I discipline. Not to control. Not to restrict. But to protect. Every boundary I set is a fence around something precious. And when you cross it, you do not just lose my blessing. You lose yourself. I saw it then. The version of myself I was meant to be. The woman I could have been if I had waited, if I had trusted, if I had obeyed. I saw her standing in a wedding dress, walking down an aisle toward a man God had chosen, a man who loved God more than he loved her, a man who protected her purity instead of compromising it. I saw her worshiping with hands that were free from guilt. I saw her leading other women with a testimony of obedience instead of regret. And then I saw the version of myself I had become. Standing in the dark. Reaching for a man I could not touch. Trapped in a consequence I could not escape. Alone. The presence spoke one final time, and the words branded themselves into my soul. You cannot pray someone into spiritual maturity while yoking your soul to their immaturity. You cannot build a godly relationship on an ungodly foundation. And you cannot call blessed what I have called compromise. The light began to pull back, and I felt panic rise in my chest. Wait, I wanted to scream. Please. I understand now. I see it. I am sorry. Please do not leave me here. But the voice was not leaving. It was preparing. I am sending you back, it said. Not because you deserve it, but because they need to hear. Millions are walking the same path you walked. Millions are in relationships they believe I have blessed. Millions are compromising and calling it love. You will warn them. You will tell them what you have seen. And some will listen. And some will not. But you will speak. I felt the heat begin to fade. The darkness started to crack. The groaning voices grew distant. And for the first time since I arrived in that place, I felt something I thought I would never feel again. Which is hope. The light that had been pulling back suddenly surged forward, and I felt a force unlike anything I had ever known. It was not gentle. It was not slow. It was violent, immediate, like being ripped from one realm and thrust into another with no time to prepare. The heat vanished. The groaning stopped. The darkness shattered into a million pieces, and I was pulled upward with a speed that made my spirit feel like it was tearing apart. I could not scream. I could not breathe. I could only hold on to the presence that had spoken to me, the presence that was now dragging me out of that place. I saw the cracked ground fall away beneath me. I saw the shadows reaching upward, their hands grasping at nothing. I saw Evan's hollow eyes one last time before the distance swallowed him completely. And then everything went white. The next thing I felt was pain. Sharp, immediate, physical pain. My chest exploded with pressure, and I felt ribs crack under the force of something pressing down on me. My lungs, which had not drawn air in what felt like an eternity, suddenly gasped, pulling in oxygen so fast it burned. I heard voices. Real voices. Human voices. We have a pulse. We have a pulse. Stay with us. Stay with us, Bethany. My eyes flew open, and the world came rushing back in a flood of sensation. Bright lights. White ceiling. Faces hovering above me. Paramedics. The woman with short dark hair. The man with the thick beard. They were still there, still working, still fighting for my life. I tried to speak, but my throat was raw, my voice gone. All that came out was a choking gasp. The woman leaned closer, her face filled with relief. "You're okay. You're back. Just breathe. Do not try to talk." But I had to talk. I had to tell them. I had to tell everyone. The warning was still burning inside me, the weight of what I had seen pressing down on my chest harder than any CPR compressions ever could. "Please." I managed to whisper, my voice barely audible. "Please. I have to warn them." The paramedic looked confused, but she nodded, squeezing my hand. "You're safe now. Just rest." But I could not rest. My body was back, but my soul was still trembling from what I had witnessed. My mind was racing, replaying every moment, every word, every revelation. I had been to the edge of eternity, and I had been given a second chance. Not for myself. For them. For the millions walking the same path I had walked. They loaded me into the ambulance. I heard the sirens start again, felt the vehicle lurch forward. I stared at the ceiling, tears streaming down my face, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I was alive. I was breathing. But I was not the same. I would never be the same. The doctors at Kelowna General Hospital kept me for 3 days. Concussion. Fractured ribs. Severe bruising. Miraculously, nothing worse. They called it a miracle. They said I should not have survived. 11 minutes without a pulse. 11 minutes clinically dead. But here I was, breathing, talking, living. I did not tell them where I had been. Not at first. I did not know how. How do you explain to a doctor that you died and went to hell? How do you tell a nurse that you saw the consequences of compromise, that you witnessed the eternal weight of choices people make in bedrooms and backseats and apartments late at night? But I knew I had to. I knew the moment I woke up that my life was no longer my own. I had been sent back for a reason. And that reason was burning in my chest, demanding to be spoken. I was released from the hospital on September 17th, 3 days after the accident. My parents picked me up, their faces etched with worry and relief. My mother cried the entire drive home. My father kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror, as if checking to make sure I was still real, still here. Evan came to visit me that first night. He stood in my doorway, his face pale, his eyes red from crying. He tried to hug me, but I stepped back. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. "We need to talk," I said quietly. We sat in my living room, and I told him everything. I told him about the crash, about the out-of-body experience, about the descent into darkness. I told him about the couples I saw, the regret, the isolation, the consequences. I told him about the voice, the warnings, the truth I had been running from for 2 years. He listened in silence, his hands gripping his knees, his face unreadable. When I finished, he looked at me for a long time, and then he spoke. "So, what are you saying?" I took a deep breath, and for the first time in our entire relationship, I chose God over him. "I am saying we are done, Evan. I love you. But this, us, it was never what God wanted. I know that now. I have been compromising, justifying, ignoring conviction, and calling it love. But it was not love. It was sin. And I cannot do it anymore." He stared at me, shock written all over his face. "Bethany, we can fix this. We can do better. We can." "No," I said, my voice breaking but firm. "We cannot. Because doing better is not the same as doing right. God never told me to be with you. I chose you. And in choosing you, I walked away from him. I saw where that leads, Evan. I saw it. And I will not go back." He left that night, and I did not see him again for months. It was the hardest thing I have ever done. My heart felt like it had been ripped in two. I cried for weeks. I grieved the relationship, the future I thought we would have, the dreams I had built in my mind. But underneath the grief was something stronger. Peace. The kind of peace that comes when you finally stop running and start obeying. I threw myself into rebuilding my relationship with God. I confessed everything. Not just the physical sin, but the spiritual rebellion, the compromises, the idolatry of placing heaven above God. I repented, not with empty words, but with real change. I deleted his number. I blocked him on social media. I removed every tie that could pull me back. I started reading my Bible again, and this time, I did not skip the verses that made me uncomfortable. I read 1 Corinthians 6 verse 18, "Flee from sexual immorality." Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexually immoral person sins against his own body. I felt the weight of that truth. I had sinned against my own body, against God's temple, and I had called it love. I read 2 Corinthians 6 verse 14, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers." And I realized that being unequally yoked is not just about faith and lack of faith. It is about spiritual maturity, about direction, about whether both people are truly pursuing God or just using Him as a label for their relationship. I read Hebrews 13 verse 4, "Let marriage be held in honor among all, and let the marriage bed be undefiled, for God will judge the sexually immoral and adulterous." And I understood that God's design for intimacy is not restrictive. It is protective. He is not keeping something good from us. He is protecting something sacred for us. I started sharing my testimony. First with close friends. Then at a women's Bible study. Then at my church. I stood in front of hundreds of people and told them the truth. I told them about the compromise, the consequences, the warning. Some cried. Some looked uncomfortable. Some thanked me later, saying they needed to hear it. I began leading a ministry for young women struggling with purity, boundaries, and relationships. I called it Set Apart. Every week, girls came with the same struggles I had. They loved their boyfriends. They believed their relationships were blessed. They prayed together. They went to church. But they were crossing lines, justifying compromise, ignoring conviction. And I told them what I wish someone had told me. I told them that praying together does not make a relationship holy if your actions contradict your prayers. I told them that a man who truly loves God will protect your purity, not test it. I told them that physical intimacy is not a gift you give to someone you love. It is a covenant act reserved for someone you have vowed before God to love for the rest of your life. I told them that the enemy does not come with pitchforks and obvious sin. He comes with good feelings, with Christian language, with someone who seems like the answer to your prayers. And slowly, subtly, he convinces you to compromise just a little. Just this once. Just because you love each other. And before you know it, you are miles away from God, convinced you are still close to Him. The warning I received in that place has never left me. It burns in my chest every time I speak. Every time I see a young couple sitting too close, holding hands during worship, posting pictures with captions about being blessed, I want to shake them and say, "Are you really blessed, or are you just comfortable? Is God truly in this, or have you just dressed your desires in religious language?" If you are hearing this and you are in a relationship you know deep down God did not ordain, please listen. If you are crossing physical boundaries and justifying it with future intent, please stop. If you are ignoring conviction, silencing the Holy Spirit, and calling it grace, please repent. God's boundaries are not prison walls. They're guardrails on a cliff. And when you cross them, you do not just lose His blessing. You lose yourself. I know because I lived it. I died with it. And I came back to warn you. Do not wait until it is too late. Examine your heart today. Ask God if He is truly in your relationship or if you have just assumed He is. And if He says no, trust Him enough to let go. It will hurt. It will feel impossible. But on the other side of obedience is freedom. Choose life. Choose purity. Choose God. Because eternity is real, and the choices you make today echo into forever.